So, building change resilience. There is a lot of pressure onto everybody at the moment. And when I was thinking about this particular topic, I thought it broke down into three particular areas, and it was really too much to try and deal with it in one session. So what I'm planning to do is focus this session on the psychological resilience elements, because I think that that's actually really fundamental to the other elements working effectively. But if you are interested and there's appetite for it, we will also do a session on professional resilience and what you can do around career development to make yourself feel both confident and upskilled, and also, you know, in the tough competition that's going on at the moment out there, that you have the best chance of doing what you really want to do. And then finally, there's sort of team resilience, which is about supporting your team, and there'll be things today that will really help with that, but very specifically about organizational and team development as well, in terms of helping them through the change. But this is about you, and this is about things that you can maybe share with your team, but focus on yourself to start with, to make sure that you are in a good place going forward. So this is focusing on the building psychological resilience. So if you could click on the Menti, put the code into the website to go onto it, and or scan the QR code with your phone. I've got a question for you that I'm really interested in just getting a sense of how people are feeling and where things are at the moment. So whilst you are doing that, it's been dropped into the chat as well, so you can scan that one. So the first question is, how do you feel about the changes and the impact on you personally? So there are changes going on, really infrastructural changes, mostly in England at the moment, but Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, I imagine, have other challenges going on and different changes, and probably different stages of changes. But in terms of England, there's national bodies going, there's regional and integrated care boards being cut in half. At trust level, there's all of that funding deficit. I imagine that will translate across to the boards in Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. And just have a sense of how that's making everybody feel at the moment. And change is an interesting thing, because some people might find change as a very positive feeling. It's a sense of we can do something new and different, but actually it can be also very unsettling. So just having a look at changes and impact on you. We've got a range coming through so far. Some people are feeling energized and optimistic and see it as a positive thing, feeling motivated and ready to help that make that change work in practice. Curious, understanding more about how to be involved in change. Uncertain, trying to make sense of what it means for me, and that's not unsurprising. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, feeling like there's too much change at once. Resigned, change feels inevitable and just trying to adapt, that it's potentially being done to. Frustrated, feel unheard or unclear about the direction. And then the last one is disconnected, finding it hard to engage. And this is a range of different feelings, and it may be that you feel more than one, and it could be that there's more than one, and hopefully it'll give you the opportunity to maybe vote for more than one, because what you feel on any given day can change. And it might be that you're hopeful one day, pessimistic or fearful the next, and it's an emotional response to the changes and how we feel about it. And it's interesting to see that kind of curve going on there, but there's quite some positive focus, but also primarily uncertainty. We're going to talk about uncertainty because that actually has a difficult impact on us physiologically. And there's some things that we're going to do in terms of how to help to manage that could help you and your team move forward with it. So please, thank you, continue to fill that in. I'm just going to move that out of the way, and we will move on to the next question a little bit later. But I just wanted to focus primarily on, what does building psychological resilience mean? And there's an interesting definition that looks at, it's about strengthening the mental and emotional capacity to adapt, recover, and sustain well-being during continuous change, pressure, and uncertainty. And I think it's important, this message, it's not about becoming tough or unfeeling. It's about understanding and managing the brain and body's response to stress, so people can remain balanced, purposeful, and able to make good decisions even under strain. And I think that's the important thing, is about ensuring that you can respond to the stresses. And it's not about eliminating them, because they're always going to be there, but it's actually, how do you manage them and how do you understand how you're responding in relation to them. Most of you may be familiar with the change curve, and the change curve by Kubler-Ross was designed as a way of understanding the stages of grief that people go through, particularly when it comes to human loss. But the change curve from a psychological perspective is often related to any form of change, because loss can be all sorts of things. It could be loss of your sense of identity. It could be loss of your job. It could be loss of the team of which you feel an intrinsic part of. And all of that sense of loss can make you feel stuck and anxious and build a level of stress. Now, for those people that are excited by change, it might not be all change. It might be change that you feel that you have a confident position to influence, in which case you, in your positive sense, can help those that are struggling to engage with that change or understand it through a different dynamic, to feel differently about the change. The reason I like this particular version of the change curve is because it's the only one I've seen that actually builds a bridge from the initial elements of change, which is shock and denial, where it might be a resistance to change because we feel threatened by that change. And it effectively is hopefully leading people across to a new state in terms of acceptance and that steady state, that new future, in a way that means that we're not losing people and they're not being go to the depths of sort of anger and despair that often can be the result of it, if you feel like the change is really impacting on you individually. So part of our role as individuals is to define a bridge for ourselves across that change curve, looking at how do we get from where we are at the start of it in a positive way across to the future state. Now, we have a template to support through this particular set of activities that we're going to look at today. As I say, we've got a lot to get through. So Helen's going to drop a link in the chat. Fingers crossed everybody can access it. If not, you can take it away as part of the email that will follow up, and we'll put the link there. So if those of you that can click on that link, give me a thumbs up if you can open it. It's a Word document. We've got some, yeah? Okay, great. Thanks for the thumbs up, guys. That's great. So if you want to open up and have a look at the template, it's to help you think through from your own perspective what your response to some of the change is. If it's positive, there might be things that you want to support others with or to build on. It's primarily aimed at anybody struggling with change, or for you to support others that might be struggling with change. So it'll help you hopefully get across that bridge and build that bridge to get you safely across to the other side. So one of the things that underpins the sort of critical element of the psychological change is the neuroscience. So what goes on in people's heads when they're presented with change, and how can it be both positive and negative for different people, and how you respond to it, and what can we do about that? So I did a neuroscience course for coaches with Dr. Tibisi Vera. And there are three main elements to understanding neuroscience and how it's impacting in change. One is around neuroplasticity, and that's about building new neural pathways and learning to do new things. And we're not really covering that one today. That we're going to focus today on things around brain chemistry and brain waves. Brain chemistry is about the hormones and the neurotransmitters, so that's the feelings that we get and how we respond to it physiologically. And the waves, the brain waves, is around neural feedback, it's thoughts, it's self-awareness. And both of those things can work in harmony to get you into a positive place to deal with change. And we're going to look at techniques for how you can tap into those particular parts of your brain and how you can make them work positively for your benefit. So, how does the brain work when it comes under positive or negative threat responses or opportunities. So if you are feeling positive about something and you think it's a good thing, you go, it's great. What happens is your brain is open. It's the prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking, the creative, the positive, cognitive side is open and available, and you can be involved and engaged. And that's a very positive way for getting into a particular change. But if the brain perceives the change as a threat, that it might threaten your position, your status, your sense of belonging, your role, or there's a lot of uncertainty that makes it feel threatening because you just don't know, then what happens is your body triggers the amygdala. The amygdala is your fight or flight response. And it's interesting that the body can't tell the difference between something that is a physical threat and a psychological threat. It reacts in exactly the same way. So if there was a mad axe murderer chasing you, your fight or flight would trigger. You'd be, your amygdala would react, and suddenly you'd be filled with adrenaline and cortisol, which gives you the power to be able to run as fast as you can. But the same thing happens when you're presented with the psychological threat, say bullying or something that is uncertain and you don't know what the impact's going to be on you. It has the same effect and it gives us the same physiological response. The problem with it is that when the amygdala is triggered, it effectively prevents signals going to the prefrontal cortex, which stops you from being able to think logically and cognitively about and assess that threat. Now, from a biological point of view, you don't want to be stopping and thinking about it if a mad axe murderer is chasing you. But you do need to think logically and cognitively to be able to assess options if you have a longer term threat to be able to work out. And one of the problems we have with uncertainty, and that was the highest score on the thing, is actually that uncertainty becomes chronic stress as opposed to it's a short-term burst. And that has a negative impact on our physiological state and our mental state. And we're going to have a look at that because it might be that you're feeling elements of that. So if we move on to the next question in the Menti, how are the changes impacting your emotional and physical well-being? And it's an open question. It's for you to just be able to express how you feel. And that's to say, you know, I'm actually feeling great, or actually that uncertainty is making me feel anxious, or I'm feeling negative, or I'm feeling depressed and things like that. So do just express how that feeling. It's anonymous, so nobody can see what you're commenting in there. But just get a sense of how you're feeling internally at the moment, and what does that feel? What does that sensation feel like? Bring that across so you can start to have a look at what people are feeling in relation to this. So, draining, tired, unheard, stressed, anxious. I think draining, and we'll talk about that because there's things that we can do to improve on how that impacts on you. Less motivated, worries about career. Yeah. And if you're interested, we'll do that career session and focus on that next. Feeling a bit anxious, affecting sleep. Yes, that's one of the key things. Jackie's saying the app's not updated to the next question. Is anybody else having that problem? And if you go out and come back in, Jackie, because these are the results, so some people must be able to get in. Maybe see if you can refresh it. Tearful, oh dear, that's a sense of fear and sadness. That's quite overwhelming, isn't it? Feeling anxious, affected, my sleep, less motivated, lack of concentration, frustration, burnout, of leading team through change while navigating new landscape. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Amy's saying she refreshed it and it's worked this time. So Jackie and Jenny, if you want to try that, see if we can get in and add your thoughts to this one. Insecurity, low mood, panicking, reactive. Yeah. And this is, I mean, yeah, this was me too when so my last sort of job internally was I was head of the corporate portfolio office for Health Education England. And I went through a lot of these emotions personally when It was announced that HE was going to be merged into NHS England, and all the stuff that I'd spent 10 years building in terms of capability, maturity, the sense of the team, the sense of belonging, it was all going to be lost. And that made me feel almost all of these things. And it wasn't the first time. I've probably been through the 23 years, about 5 major reorganizations. Angry at leadership, that's a yes. And looking at the change curve, anger is one of those stages along there. Pain in the chest, oh dear, that's concerning. If that continues, please seek medical help. But if it's a sense of anxiety that you're feeling that sort of pressure there, let's see if we can suggest some things to help to manage some of that feeling. Some days are okay, most days are hard. I think this is a really honest response to how people are actually just impacted by it all at the moment. And thank you for sharing so honestly. Heavy, yeah. Periods of stress and frustration, tearful, undervalued, yeah. Lack of motivation, draining, anxious, bad sleep. These are all things that we're going to have a look at to see what we can do to improve how you can take care of yourself during this. Paranoid, well, yeah, actually that's a response to feeling threatened as well by the change. Bit numb, yeah, sad. Huge impact, struggling to feel positive about work-related issues, sad and disengaged, yeah. That's a lot of comments. Thank you so much for everybody who's contributed those. What we'll do is we'll come back and see at the end if people are feeling a little more in control of themselves, so that they can feel like there are things that you can do to support yourself. Yeah, you're right, John. It is sad that the people who give their heart and soul are really struggling with all of this. 30 years of experience unappreciated. Well, it is really difficult and challenging times, but do stick with me. And for anybody who can't stay for the whole thing, you will get a link to the recording, so do follow on, and we've got some resources that we're going to share. So hopefully what we can do is for you people to help start your journey to feel more positive, and then you can maybe help some others as well. And again, this is an agnostic of Project and Change. This is anybody that's interested. So we know the impacts on everybody. And other organisations will be doing similar kinds of stuff to support people, but share the resources. And if anything you've got, do share it in the chat. And I think it's having one of the challenging things I think about something like this environment is that it's a very emotional thing that we invest ourselves in. We're here for a reason. We're here for a purpose. We want to make a difference. And what we want to feel is that we feel valued for having made that contribution, and we commit our time, our energy, blood, sweat and tears to make it happen. And I think the important thing is that when we've got some of these major reorganisations, it's not personal. And I think the fact that it's impersonal is not a good thing. But collectively, if you think about the people on this call would all support and value each other's contribution to it. The team you belong to, the people that you work with, that's who we get our sense of belonging from, not the external decision-making overlords that don't know us. But also part of our sense of self-worth comes from our sense of self-value. If you know that you make a difference and that you know you're doing something of value to the public and community, your own self-validation can be the first thing that you can hang on to. So let's move on. What happens when we're impacted cognitively, and what are the emotional consequences? So we talked about that uncertainty being the highest indicator, and that's one of the chronic things that can really affect a mood, and people have expressed that in the Menti questions. So what can happen? How can it affect us? So cognitively, the prefrontal cortex is hijacked by the limbic system, which is responding with fight or flight, and it can make it difficult concentrating. You're overthinking, ruminating. where you're constantly thinking about something, and that for those that are still awake at night, that might be one of those things that you're thinking about at night, but no real solution comes through because you don't get an opportunity to move beyond it. Indecision and impaired memory. Yeah, I can relate to that one. Emotionally, the brain's threat response heightens vigilance and emotional intensity. So it can make, if you're a relaxed, affable person, normally under these stressful conditions, it can create the opposite effect. Anxious, irritable, frustrated, helpless, outbursts of emotional feelings, feeling uncontrolled in those ways. Behavioral, people can try and regain control through hyper control or avoidance. So it's like, well, I'm not dealing with that because I can't cope, or actually I need to get more control to just try and have a sense of control over the situation. So it can look like micromanagement or procrastination, withdrawal or perfectionism. So those are flip sides of the same sense of behavioral output of that stressor. And then physiologically, and this is the concerning bit for your health and well-being, chronic uncertainty keeps cortisol elevated. And that's one of those fight and flight brain chemicals that is generated when you feel under threat. So what that constant chronic cortisol can do is lead you to fatigue, headaches, disrupted sleep, and immune suppression. And all of those were mentioned apart from the immune suppression, but actually if people were asked, how do you feel and how susceptible do you feel to colds and other illnesses, that actually that's probably triggered as well. So how do we alleviate some of these symptoms and get some control back for ourselves in terms of how we deal with it? So in terms of the way in which things are triggered around the threat response and how you've been feeling in relation to it, the traditional approach is probably the way in which it's being handled at the moment. And increased energy consumption, do more with less, do more on top of what you're doing already, but also deal with the uncertainty of change at the same time when you've still got your targets to hit, you've got changes to put in place, there's new services to deliver, but you're still expected to cope with the uncertainty of what's happening to you. So it talks about then pattern recognition, and this is the bit about uncertainty. So when you look at detection of out of ordinary signals, it's like you can't see the direction of travel. There is no obvious future. So you're in limbo because you don't know what direction to go in. You've got all of this negative energy, this anxiety, but you haven't got anything to focus it on in terms of productively moving it forward. And that's a very difficult position to be in. But also, threat is identified as a pain. It's the same areas in the brain that are triggered when you hurt yourself. And those areas are triggered by that uncertainty and fear. So if that's the response that you're feeling and in response to the changes that are going on, and it's increasing your cortisol and its chronic levels of stress and anxiety, one of the things that we can look at is how do we reduce that? And the opposite way of approaching that is by how can you save energy? What are the things that you can stop doing to reduce the overwhelming demand? What are the things that we can do to make it feel more familiar? Now, if you're uncertainty about the direction of travel, that could be difficult, but you could make your own choices about your direction of travel and maybe take some of that control back. And that could be about yourself and your physiological and mental health, but it also could be about your career and what happens and what direction you're going in. So some of that we can look at in the next session, which is around career, but this one we're going to look at how do we help you to feel in control about your mental and physical health. And then hunting and laughing. And this is about positive brain chemistry to counteract the negative brain chemistry. We're going to talk a little bit about some of those examples of some of the things that you can do in relation to it. But those positive brain chemicals that then counteract the negative cortisol are things like dopamine. So dopamine is generated when we have a sense of satisfaction for having done something. So those of you that are into gaming or puzzles, say Wordle or Sudoku, or you like to do games that have got levels and challenges, it's that sense of reward you get with having completed it, that sense of satisfaction, you've achieved something. That creates dopamine, that counteracts the cortisol. But the other more important ones really are the endorphins and the oxytocin. Everybody knows the endorphin, it's the feel-good factor, and that feel-good factor comes from things like feeling love and affection and warmth and belonging. And that oxytocin is very much about that sense of belonging. So what can you do to ask for and connect with people that will help to generate those feelings and those brain chemicals to help to counteract that very high level of excess cortisol and adrenaline? So ask your loved ones for a hug. Ask for, do something fun. Play, go out, take time out, switch off. Do things that are going to create positive brain chemistry that allows you to switch out of that mental state. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Lynn's put a comment in about often reaction to change depends on whether change is communicated well to the individual and whether the individual has opportunity to ask questions, receive feedback. Absolutely. So one of the things about how you engage with change is it might be that you don't know what's coming, but if you understand the process that is going through and you have confidence and trust in it, that will alleviate some of that fear of the uncertainty because you know that there's a process in place. We'll add that in because I think there's something about trust and how important trust is to our sense of confidence that is critical to how that is communicated. But it's important to understand the long-term effects on the body of stress, because actually you need to think about how you're going to manage this for yourselves, but also how you support your colleagues and team members with it, and potentially family members who are impacted by it. So what happens under chronic stress? The brain and nervous system impacts on alertness and messaging. So you get poor memory, concentration, anxiety, and irritability. Cardiovascular, we've all had this when we've been watching horror movies, or you get that sudden fright that your heart starts beating, you get palpitations. And in long term, without breaking it down, it cannot improve it can impact on your blood pressure and include hypertension and heart disease. So it's important to find times to be able to break that down and de-stress it. Your immune system be compromised, frequent illnesses, slower to recover. Endocrine and metabolic changes, so blood sugar, insulin, fat, metabolism, all of those things are, if you're trying to lose weight or if you're trying to improve your diet, it's really hard to do that when you've got heightened stress levels. You need to be able to manage that so that it doesn't increase your risk of things like fatigue and type 2 diabetes. Digestive, it can make blood flow and enzymes in the digestive tract out of sync or incorrect or damage positive ones. IBS, indigestion, loss of appetite. Musculoskeletal, chronic muscle tension and inflammation, headaches, back and neck pain. Don't know if people have been experiencing that when they've been feeling overwhelmed by all of this. And sleep and recovery. Sleep is incredibly critical to recovery. And if your sleep is being disturbed by the stress and anxiety, that's going to make it worse. So if that's how you're feeling, and fatigue, cognitive fog, low mood, what can we do to tackle some of those things to make sure that this doesn't become a chronic health problem for you? So have a think about what you do already, because I'm sure that most of you will have things that you do to support yourself in these areas. Share your thoughts and ideas with others. We'll come to this and look at some examples, but I want you to feel like actually you have some of the answers here so that you can share them with others. I'll start from myself. So I'm asthmatic, and one of the things in terms of my health is I did Buddhist meditation classes to try and improve my breathing, but also in terms of control stress and anxiety. Before coming into the NHS and the different kind of stresses here, I worked in the private sector, which was also very stressful. And being able to meditate and to be able to control some of that cognitive feeling and be able to listen into how I was feeling was an important part of that. And so I can do walking meditations now, and part of that's about going out into the country, going for a walk, observing what's around me, just helping to shut down that constant emotional churn or the rumination around things, but also getting in touch with my feelings in relation to it. So if you have a good hint or tip for what helps you to improve your mental state, do suggest it in the chat. So what do we need to reduce So it reduces anxiety. We've had a look at some of these, and people, I think, judging by the comments, are really running on empty. Diminishing sense of achievement and hope, markers of burnout, and there's clearly quite a that going on at the moment. So if you're going to put a suggestion in, I want others to give it some love and share that if we've got some positive things. And Joanne's commented about add this on top of colleagues going through perimenopause who are suffering long-term and chronic illnesses. Yes, can relate to that as well. So I want to do a brain chemistry experiment with you. And given the emotional state that people are in or how they're feeling at the moment, it might be a bit of a challenge, but I want you to try this one out. Can't see you, can't hear you, nobody can see what you're doing. If you're in an open plan office, just ignore those around you at the moment. But what I want you to do is have a think about, where is your happy place? And part of this is about being able to take control over how your mind is responding to things. So come with me on this. And if you're not somebody who can visualize things, because there's a certain portion of people that aren't good at visualization, I want you to think about what generates maybe a happy scent for you. It might be something that makes you smell of Christmas, or something that has a positive association. So come with me on this journey for a moment. I want you to all close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and I want you to think about where you are happiest. And I want you to create a visual of that in your head and think about where you are, who you're with, what are you doing, what does it feel like? Is it somewhere warm? Can you feel the sun on you? Is it somewhere cold that you like being in the snow? Just for a minute, close your eyes and visualize where your happy place is, and take yourself there and the people that you would want to be there with you. And just let you bring that memory to the front and think about that place where you feel happiest. Just do some deep breathing while you're doing it. Slow, deep breaths in. Slow breaths out. A couple more times. Last one. And just come back from that visual. Hopefully, some of you will have been able to connect with that and let me know how that makes you feel. Stick it in the chat. There's some really great examples in the chat of things to do about people do to make them feel good. Have a look at those examples. Claire's saying relaxed. That's fantastic. Brighter, happier, calmer, lighter. Brilliant. Didn't want to come back. Yes. Smiley. Relaxed, cut off from the world. This is fantastic. Well done, because the thing is, if you think about, in reality, nothing had changed. You weren't in a different place. The changes going on are still going on, but you were able to take control of your mind and make it change how it felt about something and generate positive brain chemistry to counteract the negative ones that you're feeling from the changes. And you were able to do that without any other intervention other than going inside your head. So if you are struggling with a lot of the burnout, the anxiety and stress and poor sleep, I want you to do this and add this to your template in terms of the things that you're going to take away. Is you have this control, you can do this. And if you struggled with it, just maybe put some time when it's a bit quieter somewhere and have a think and give yourself 5 minutes to reconnect to your happy place or your happy scent or something that conveys a sense of good feeling for you. Because you have this control. And if you can put this in, particularly before bedtime, Take yourself to your happy place. It will help to balance out some of those chemicals in the brain. Fantastic. Well done. So what did we do there? Part of it was about generating new brain chemicals, but also part of it was about changing the wavelength state in your brain. When we are under constant pressure and feeling overwhelmed, we're in a gamma state, which is where we feel like we're multi-processing lots of different things all at the same time. And that feels overwhelming. The brain waves are rattling around at a fast pace of speed. But in order for us to be able to relax and calm down and think creatively and get into a space where we can think about the problems in an objective way, we need to create the alpha state. And that's about being able to create focus and flow and creativity. And what we did just there was actually help to shift that brain chemistry, but also the brain wave state. And you can do this. And some of the suggestions that have been put in the chat are fantastic ones for how you could do this. Walking the dog, having a bath, going to a place that you feel happy and comfortable, being with somebody that you feel happy and comfortable with. These are the things that are going to create positive brain chemicals, but also help the brain frequencies relax to a place where you're able to engage with them positively and creatively. So have a think about those actions and how you can fit that into your day. And some of the components of it from a psychological resilience point of view are about being able to create that mental space to then think about some of those other elements. So self-awareness, recognizing when you're feeling stressed and being conscious of that so that you can put something like the happy place, what's the word? Meditation, that was the word I was looking for, where you can put that into place. But also something like journaling to identify when you've got patterns of pressure, or just capturing those feelings. When you expressed your feelings earlier, those are really honest and visceral and painful. But actually, somebody mentioned in the comments, it's quite cathartic being able to do that. And if you can do that by writing it down, but also saying it out loud. And that tip that I do is when I'm stressed or particularly angry, I will take myself for a walk and I will say out loud the things I would really like to say out loud to the people or persons that are making me feel like that. And just like that happy place experiment that we did, if you say something out loud as if you're saying it to that person or about the situation, your brain also can't tell the difference between whether it's been real or not real, and it will feel like you've had your say. And you can do it in a safe place that isn't career limiting because you've said something rude and offensive to people who might be paying your salary. But what it can do is help to get some of that churn off your chest and out of you. Do try that out. Emotional regulation. The exercise we just did, that's about emotional regulation. Get some time out of the office or, just in a quiet space and plan that in so that you've got moments to be able to create some positive brain chemistry. Cognitive reframing. Is there a way you can think differently about the challenge that says, well, actually, how can I frame this as an opportunity? How can I think positively about this? When we do the session about careers, if people are interested in that, one of the things is you have a choice not to accept the changes and to set your own path. So have a think about that and what that could mean. This might be an opportunity. If you had a choice to do something completely different, what would it be? There could be a love for something that you put on aside in order to do what you do now. But this could be another opportunity for a different direction. Purpose and meaning. We talked about this sense of not feeling valued. And in a sense, what we value is what it means to us. And being able to share that and communicate that story about why it's important to you, what you do, but also reaffirming it for yourself. You go, we're not doing it for our political overlords. We're doing it for our friends, our family, our neighbours, our community. We're doing it for the people we love and the people we don't know, but feel that they deserve that. And just recreating that why in your head to go, okay, yeah, this is still the important thing to do, even if these particular people don't seem to really appreciate it. Reconnect for yourself. recovery habits, so building daily practices to restore your energy. This is going to be really critical to keep you on track in terms of progressing as you go through this seemingly unending uncertainty at the moment. Take short walks, stretch, do recovery activities between meetings. See what you can do to plan those in. This is going to be a long haul, not a short fight. So prepare yourself. I just want to talk a little bit about the SCARF model, David Rock's SCARF model, and think about, and it's in the template, think about what is important to you and what triggers you if this is something that doesn't happen. So David Rock talks about 5 different areas of motivation for us as individuals. One is about motivated by a sense of status, that I feel valued, that I feel that my input, my knowledge, my experiences is valued. And what happens when we don't feel that and what that triggers for us? How can I feel assured that they know that they're valued? So part of that's about how do we make other people feel valued, but also how do we make sure we get it for ourselves? Certainty. Look at the ability to predict the future. How certain are we? I know where I stand and how it will happen. And it maybe we don't know what the outcome is, but if we're confident in the in the process and feel that the process is structured and managed properly, we might then feel less uncertain. Autonomy, perception of having control. And this is a personal one for me, that you feel like you have a choice and have input into it. If you are engaging people in changes, make sure that you are giving them the opportunity to contribute. But it's also what happens when you feel that you're triggered because you're not involved or you don't feel you're being listened to. And the last 2, relatedness and fairness, are really important ones as well, because the relatedness thing is often part of what we have in the public sector, where we are part of a community of people who come together to do something that we all collectively believe in, that we have a sense of purpose around. And if we feel like we are not being included because we're being separated out, because, well, that team over there is safe, but we're not, we're being, moved out or we're being reduced, that sense of belonging can be undermined, and that can be very unsettling and distressing. So what can you do to support yourself to feel like you're still connected with your colleagues, and what can you do for your team members as well? And then fairness, that you feel you're being treated fairly and equally. That might be a bit of a challenging one if we don't feel that the process is particularly well structured and fair, but it's recognizing how you feel and what impact that's having on you if that is the case. And I think the important thing is that if you are feeling triggered by any of these elements, that you have something that you can do to help you feel that you're getting in control of it. I'm going to skip over this because it's in the slide deck and also in the self-help kind of guide and some documents that are going to come along with it. The final question that I have for you is, what would improve your emotional and physical well-being? That's in the Menti chat. So have a think what would help you and capture that. And we'll share that with others so that we can feel like there's some good ideas for how to help each other. And just while you're capturing that, what I'll do is, because I'm mindful of the time, excuse me, is have a look at how we can combat some of this prolonged stress and the effects it has on you. So resilience is not innate. It's a trainable skill set. It's about practice. So evidence-based strategies counteract chronic stress and rebalancing brain chemistry, supporting recovery and building emotional equilibrium are really important. So regulate the stress response, which is sympathetic, with the parasympathetic, which is things that build positive brain chemistry. So doing things that make you feel good, connect with people. Reframe and rebalance the thinking, reducing cognitive overload. And some of that can be, how can you change the brain wave, switch off from the churn, and just allow your brain to settle into a different brain state that gets you thinking about a problem in a cognitive way. Connect and seek support as a buffer for stress. you do not have to go on this alone. And in fact, being a part of a community like this and being able to share your thoughts and feelings and being able to ask for support is really important, because that's what gets all of us through. You know, we are a human species that is dependent on being part of a community. We're a tribal species. So ask the community, ask your friends, your connections to help. Support the body to heal, replenish the depleted physical systems. And part of that's about the activities that you do to help to reduce the cortisol and adrenaline, positive brain chemistry, and help the body to recover from its stress response and its inflammation. Reconnect with meaning and purpose to restore intrinsic motivation. And recognize when to seek professional help. Now, I'm not a counsellor or a therapist. I've been on some courses, but this is me and just as helpfully hoping to bring the community together about the things that we're struggling with, and to bring some resources and some insights to help to get people on that journey. But if you're really struggling, and we're going to look at what does that look like, it may be a good opportunity to get some really professional help. So when to seek help. If prolonged stress leads to persistent anxiety, low mood, or emotional detachment, these are really indicative of depression, that it's become so bad. And getting some professional help might support get out of that state. Physical symptoms, heart palpitations, somebody mentioned chest pain, that's concerning. Please, my friend, please do, and get some help to look into that and see what support you can get with that. That would be really helpful. Digestive issues, it's the same way. It's inflammation caused by continuous stress. Sleep disruption for more than 2 weeks. Try some of the techniques that we have talked about and some of the things we're going to suggest, but also if it continues, please do get some support. Difficulty functioning at work or at home. We're programmed to keep going. And part of the challenge of that is actually sometimes we need to stop and ask for help and seek some support, because it actually is more than we can cope with. So if you are feeling like you're not functioning and you're struggling with it, please do get some help. There are some really fantastic support available. Your organisation might have them, but there's also practical things in terms of going to the GP and support organisations. I've had therapy and counselling. It's helped me work through the problems and to understand where they've come from and to deal with them. And I imagine many people have also had some therapy and some counselling along the way. It isn't, it's something that can help you, work through things. You do the work, you sort them out, but it's somebody to help you guide through that process. Next steps. So I'm mindful we've got a minute left and we haven't got time for questions. If there are any, I will answer them afterwards and I'll send them through in the email that comes out afterwards. Take 10 minutes this week to complete your action plan template and think about what you can do to help you, and reflect on how you feel and capture some of those thoughts. Apply one micro change. So what are you going to, just a small thing that starts you on that journey to help you out of your current state. Use that to write it down. Small consistence help with resilience over time. Access ongoing support if you are feeling really overwhelmed and challenged. Please do. We all need it at some point. And if it's you, that's fine. It's just your turn, and they will help you get back on track so you can help others. And then commit to review. Put it in your calendar, or put a thing in to say you're going to review it in 4 to 6 weeks to say what small changes have you made, but also reflecting on how you're feeling and what else you could do to help you move forward. Small changes are going to help. Celebrate the small wins. Resilience grows through awareness and repetition. Resilience isn't built in a day. It's built in the days you pause, reflect, and choose balance. So take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves, build some of that in. The rest of it can wait. Helping yourself is going to be a premium to help you get through all of this and to help you, for you to help others. So that was the content. I'm mindful we've run out of time, but I hope that was some useful insights, but also help to share some of your thoughts and feelings about this. Next session we have on this theme is the one with Bryn on storytelling, how to confidently tell your story. So going to be some fantastic support there, some really great tools and techniques. We'll send out some thoughts, some resources following the session, along with the link to the slides, but also reflect on the things that you came up with in terms of what will help you to improve your physical well-being and mental well-being, and plan those in. Take care of yourself first, okay? So thank you for joining us today. I hope that was helpful. Do sign up to the future events. If you're interested in the career one, we will put that on in the new year, and we'll look at very practical and pragmatic ways to look at your career future. Okay, thank you for your time and input today. It's been a pleasure to have you, and I hope you feel just a little bit better, or at least a bit more positive. There are things that we can do.